to security and this and that, and people are just staring. I can feel them staring, even though I can't see them.
The whole scheme of things, and if you look at that sort of time frame from a point of view of when you're born to when you die, that's only a very, very, very small part, what's time of your life.
Thanks for tuning in. This has been Hermit Radio.
All right, thanks everybody for coming back and listening. I'm your host Cameron. Sit back, relax. For the next 10 minutes, go to your happy place because you're in Zen Time. I wanted to tie in this episode from a little bit of what we talked about last week. And we were talking last week about desire. This again, like I said last week about desire, doesn't mean just, passionate desire. Suffering is tonight's topic, and suffering comes in all shapes and sizes. Suffering in physical pain, mental pain, emotional pain. We all have it. And it's something that I feel like can be handled depending on how your mindset is. Very similar to all these other things I've talked about, it really is based on your perception, how you choose to see it. I wrote down, for me as a keynote, I wrote down, suffering is our greatest teacher. Suffering reminds us that we're alive, and suffering reminds us that we're currently in the middle of a journey where this is a stuck point, this is a speed bump. And not all suffering can be overcome. That's just the truth. I'm not trying to sit here and I'm not going to tell anybody that you can avoid suffering or that there's something that's going to make it go away. As a matter of fact, while kind of researching for this episode, I kind of answered some of my own questions. I feel like we all at times think like, man, well, it seems like I'm always physically in pain, or I'm never quite happy, or I'm never just there. There's always something missing, or there's moments where you wish you were pain-free and you can't remember the last time you were pain-free. Bringing it to a kind of simpler level, like I try to always do, I want to talk about a way to see this on a simple level so that we can work through it. My example thought is, when we're talking about suffering and linking into desire, because a lot of this suffering can be caused by your own self. And what I mean by that is, I mean by your own desire or your own ego is causing yourself internal pain. So this is a really small example of this, okay? We've all been in traffic, and we've all been sitting next to the really fancy car, Lamborghini, something that you want, that you wish you could afford, right? May not be your thing, but just bear with me for a minute while I walk through this. So let's just say you're sitting in the car, you look next to you, and there's a Lamborghini. You can tell by looking at that car and by what that person's wearing that they're living pretty well. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm definitely not a millionaire. And it's easy to have the thought like, I wish I had that, or I want that, which could potentially lead you down to a further thought, which is, well, how come that guy deserves that? How come that guy has that, or that girl has that, or insert comment there. Again, it comes back to your desiring for something you don't have. And that is causing you pain, anguish in your own mind. Sure, it's not physical pain, but can you see how simple it is that you're doing that to yourself? For me, the simplest way to see this is, if I'm not going to take the steps to become a millionaire and go get that car, I certainly can't judge that guy or gal for whatever they did to get where they are. You can't change that. Those are circumstances in your life that you have zero control or power over. What you do have control or power over is what you're going to do about it. Are you going to continue to reflect on that and let it bring you down? Or are you going to make a plan on how you want to achieve that thing? So I know that that's kind of a silly one, but that's just something simple that I could bring to the table and kind of dissect it for everybody. Something that I noticed on here too that I wish I had like a visual to break down to you guys, but I have 3 categories here with little notes. Okay, there's three things that a person can feel or have in their life, and I have them labeled as faith, anger, and suffering. Okay? Having faith in something is fragile, especially if it's something that holds a lot of value to you. If you have faith in this thing, you open yourself up to disappointment, you open yourself up to all these other things, but having faith means you're going to have it no matter what. Believing in it whether or not it seems rational. Okay? And that's for anything. That's not just, spiritual or religious beliefs. That's for anything you hold true. That could be true for how you believe in yourself. Anger. Being angry at somebody, I've talked about this before. Being angry at somebody is like holding on to a hot stone. It's burning your hands. You being angry at that other person is not changing the way that they see you or changing their environment. It's not changing their circumstances. Your anger for the guy in the Lamborghini because he has a Lamborghini and you don't doesn't go away because you're angry. But what it does do is it causes you to be upset, and it causes, again, anguish in your own mind. This is what I wanted to talk about, and this is how I wanted to present it to everybody. I know these things sound simple, but sometimes we just need to be reminded of it. And you need to just have the thought in your mind to begin with for it to even manifest itself. So those 3 things. And then the last thing out of those 3 is suffering, okay? Suffering, as ugly as it looks as a word and what comes behind it, I wrote down something because I feel like the suffering is the middle ground between faith and anger. Suffering provides us an opportunity to make a choice between faith and anger. In the middle is suffering because that is a test. Suffering is always a test if you want to see it that way. I can't tell you why bad things happen to good people. I can't tell you why people get cancer. But what I can tell you is that people do get cancer. People do get robbed. People do get murdered. Those things do exist right now. And the only thing that I can do for myself every day is to remember the good things. And if I'm looking at a balancing scale, right, it doesn't always have to be happy, but you certainly don't want it to always be negative either. So those are some things to keep in mind. So I like taking some quotes and bringing them to you guys. This was a really good one. This was one I made for myself earlier. Illness and injury are part of life. But how often do you remember that they're part of life? How often when you're sick or you're in pain or whatever's going on with you, how often do you remember that, like, you know what, this is just part of life. Like, this is something that's going to happen. It would be a challenge for you to say as a human that you're going to go your whole life without ever being injured and without ever being sick. I'm sure there are some that have, and that is a challenging feat. So, sure, it's something to aspire to, but for now, in this time frame, it's very rare for people to not get injured or get ill in their lifetime. So, wrapping this up, I want to end with this and close it on this note. Just something for you to think about. Okay? This is a practice. If you don't believe in the things I'm saying, and if it's not clicking with you, this is for you people that need something hands-on to do to experiment and see if it works for you. Okay? So, every morning, before you get out of bed, you need to ask yourself this question, and you need to rationalize with yourself and prepare yourself for the day by doing this. Start your day-to-day work of making peace with the realization that unpleasant and painful experiences are part of the human condition. I want to say that one more time. I really like that. Start your day-to-day work of making peace with the realization that unpleasant and painful experiences are part of the human condition. again, I'm not saying that if you listen to my podcast or if you do any of these things, it's going to make you not feel suffering or pain or anger. All I'm trying to do is give you a way to see through it and maybe give yourself a little bit more peace of mind. Because again, it's not always going to be happy, joy all the time. And it shouldn't always be sad and angry and fearful all the time either. Both sides of those things exist. So the only thing that you can do is balance them. That's basically what I'm saying. It's not to try and rid of one or the other. It's not trying to get rid of joy altogether or pain altogether. What you are trying to do is balance them enough to make life bearable and to get through life as a journey. That's, again, the suffering aspect of it. You have the choice, ultimately, to live it to the fullest, regardless of your circumstances, or not, and everybody knows what that looks like. So, thank you again for listening. I really appreciate it. There's going to be some more stuff coming up soon, and I'll keep everybody notified on social medias. If you want to look us up, it's Hermit Radio, and we're on Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, YouTube, Instagram. Feel free to send me a message there if you have any questions about anything. And until then, I will catch you next time. Have a good night.